Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Oh, it's a dark day. It's a dark day. Look at that.
It really is.
It is.
I always remember we always used to say, when I was growing up, that always, whenever it was the Jewish holidays, it would be bad weather.
Now, what kind of anti-Semitic crap is that?
No. I didn't mean that was because, just like the hurricane.
It just always seemed like it was bad.
Because I guess in the Midwest, it was in late September, mid-September, it would always rain and...
Well, rain is a fitting kind of weather pattern for Yom Kippur. What?
Cleaning out, washing away
and stuff. But anyway, I love that holiday.
And when I walked in, Lynn was just glowing. She purged herself of all evil. And God wrote her name again in the book. And
I should hope. I don't know. If I make it for another year.
And a half. Yeah, that's right.
So, yes, I'm like a newly baptized babe.
Exactly.
Although right after I walked out, I had a bad thought about somebody. I thought, you are. You're already starting up.
Oh, since we're talking about Judaism, there was something in the paper a few weeks ago, and it reminded me, this came up about 2-3 years ago. Do you know about this very traditional, I can't remember the word for it, I wrote it down in I guess it's in Yiddish, as part of the...
You're not going to talk about the chicken, are you?
No.
Thank God.
No. I have no idea about that.
Never mind.
Of circumcision, where some very, very, very Orthodox...
Oh, no, don't! Don't! I've never heard of such a thing until I read something like that, too. These are those whacked-out Orthodox guys?
Yeah. Well, basically,
where
they suck the penis of the baby to staunch the blood. And it's a great Yiddish word, which is like suckering or something.
It sounds exactly what it is.
Well, and the reason it came up, I remember this was in the Times about 2-3 years ago, because they outlawed it, because what they found was, now this old rabbi would say... a mouth is full of germs. Well, and it was spreading HIV and herpes to these young babies. Because this moil had been around, I guess.
Oh, my God! That's so totally disgusting.
No, because, of course, when you do it in a hospital situation or whatever, or with a modern moil...
even if you do it with a regular... Yeah, you don't do that. I don't know. You know what? This is always the case, where these whacked-out fringe types... Yeah.
Well, and I suppose maybe, hundreds of years ago, it was some way, perhaps.
It was probably the only way they could think.
Yeah, it was. But I mean, nowadays, and of course, they were dealing with these wacko parents. And the mother was saying, I don't want to watch. And the father was saying, well, it was good for my father and it was good for me. And, conservatives of all sorts. Religious, political, whatever, they're all nuts.
Okay, that's Tom Sokolowski. He has spoken.
Yes, on the Schmuckericker. Whatever the word was. It had about 7,000 letters in it, but anyway.
So we haven't seen Tom, or at least I haven't, since last I saw him, when I think I told you he was in full drag as a, what would you say? What century was that?
Late 19th century.
Yeah, like 1880, 1890. Woman.
A saloniste.
Holding a salon, where...
Yes, with a white cat.
Yes, you had a white cat, which you
right.
treated rather badly, if I recall.
At the end of the song,
yes. So how long did it take to make you into that gorgeous woman?
I said when I wanted to do this, this came up. I mean, I was asked to do this, and I said I didn't want to look like some hooker on Liberty Avenue at 1 a.m. So we made some calls to the Pittsburgh Opera, to the executive director, Christopher Hahn, and he was very gracious. And so I had, an hour and a half of makeup being applied to me, and, dress fitted and wig fitted by the best and the brightest. This wonderful wig company on Elson Products, I think it is, on the north side. And these two guys who run it fit for opera companies all over the country. These wigs, you go into this lovely little row house, and there's hundreds of wigs hanging everywhere. And here's, Enrico Caruso's wig, and here's so-and-so's wig. And
can you rent them? Can anybody rent them?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, for a fee, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about anyone. I think they work primarily with companies. But probably, if you were going to something, being a personality, etc.
Big event, I could get me a wig.
Yeah.
But, so, what do you like to be in a dress? What did that feel like?
It was fun, but everyone said, "Oh, you're going to do it next year. You're going to do it." I said, "Forget it. I mean, this was a one time."
Well, you were very good, and you're a performer by nature.
Oh yes, that's for sure.
No.
I am.
Well, it was a great show, and it was benefiting the new Hazlett Theater on the north side, which is a wonderful venue, and was the first Carnegie Hall.
Yes, it was the first Carnegie Hall.
Huh.
And
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Then they turned it into a post office.
No. The post office is the building that was the original small bit of the Children's Museum. That was the post office.
That was the post office.
And then they took over the Buell Planetarium because
that's right.
Took all the guts and brought it to the Pittsburgh Carnegie Science Center.
Right.
And then in its last iteration, 5-6 years ago, they put that modern addition to span the two buildings.
Okay.
So now it's a large children's museum.
Gotcha.
Oh, when you mentioned something about the North Side, it struck me. Where did this come from? Because I was listening to NPR, and they were going on about something, and I forgot some program is hosted. I guess, that's out of YEP, what was formerly the jazz station. Mm-hmm. It's now at Duquesne, WDUQ.
No, YEP, DUQ and YEP are two separate stations.
No. But what DUQ became, they now are housed at YEP.
Yes, they are on the south side.
But every day they say, on Pittsburgh's historic South Side.
Yes, they do.
That is a weird thing.
I know, and I'm thinking,
what's so historic?
I mean, historic East Side, North Side, West Side, downtown, Oakland, Squirrel Hill. It's all historic. What does that mean? I agree. I think that's pushing it.
Yes.
I think that's silly.
Yes.
Somebody tell them to stop it. It's really absurd. I mean, historic South Side, right? Historic.
I mean, something with the Civil
You could even argue that the.
Ain't no Gettysburg, ladies and gentlemen.
I mean, the Point is more historic. That ain't the south side. The north side is. I mean, we're here. I could say that this show comes to you from the historic downtown of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, at the confluence of three rivers. This real estate fought over by European nations.
Yes.
Yes.
And savage indigenous people.
Oh, yes, the savages.
Ring us up.
Who thought they had it.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Even though they had no sense of ownership.
Except killing Bambi.
Okay.
Enough.
All right.
Ganugapisht, as they say in Yiddish.
Jeez.
I love that expression.
Ganugapisht?
Well, because Ganug is enough in German.
Okay.
And I guess the pisht is just
the pisht is Yiddish, but no, it has to mean something. Ganugapisht.
Like enough already.
Enough already. Yeah. Enough already.
Yeah, that's right.
Where'd you learn all this Yiddish?
From friends in New York.
Huh.
I remember when I first went to school at NYU. For graduate school, I lived in the historic Upper West Side and didn't have a laundry in my building. It was just a brownstone. So I went around the corner, and at that point, it was a lot of little old businesses, and there often would be Hasidic men doing their laundry in this one. What do you call it? Laundromat.
Laundromat, right.
Oh, and these guys would get into these arguments with one another, and Yiddish was flying, and I would have a little book, and I would write them down.
Well, when I grew up, my father and his mother-in-law, used to sometimes trade Yiddishism. And I don't think either of them spoke it all that well. They were the last of their line to speak it at all. And I loved listening to them.
Well, but
I would die
laughing.
I would die laughing.
Yeah.
They would tell like a joke. I didn't understand one word of it, but it was so funny. It is such a wondrous language. Oh, God.
Well, didn't I send you that thing before Rosh Hashanah about Yiddish curses?
Yes.
Some of those are great. And somehow in Yiddish or German, they just sound better.
They just sound better.
With all those schnitzes and riches.
Yeah, there's something so onomatopoeic about it.
Yes, right.
And funny. And very funny. Very funny. So, but you, I mean, I know just a few words here and there, and I don't know as much as you.
You're just a good soul. Because the one thing in every language, you always remember, like, the rude words and the curses.
I don't know any rude words in Yiddish.
Oh, you don't?
Well, I mean, I didn't know that, like, what are you?
Schmuck.
Yeah, I just thought schmuck meant a jerk. But it technically is a penis.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that.
Or in German, schmuck, I think if I'm not mistaken from what I remember my German, it can also mean like a gem, a jewel.
Well, that's
like
right.
A piece
Yeah.
And there's that
like the family jewels.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, right.
I guess.
But there's all those SCH words that are so wonderful. Yeah. And like, schlemiel, schlemazel, schlong. That's penis.
Yes. Oh, yeah, definitely. Where's Leo Rustin when we need him?
Yeah, oh God.
I remember when I first bought that book. Ladies and gentlemen,
The Joys of Yiddish.
Oh, it's hilarious
book.
because it's it's a dictionary, really.
It is a dictionary, right.
But when he'll give you the derivation of the word, then he always has
a story.
And they're all these hilarious stories because Yiddish is a very funny language.
Like the difference between a schlemazel and a I don't
schlemiel
and a
I remember, was it the schlemiel drops? No, was it the schlemiel knocks something over and the schlemazel picks it up or something like that?
Maybe the schlemazel like slips in it.
Or maybe.
I mean, it's just like one hapless person after another.
Right.
And putz is another.
Another one.
Oh, my God. But doesn't putz mean something? Putz isn't
that probably is slightly sexual, too.
Anatomical?
Yeah, I think so.
I would think so as well. All right, well, enough of this. I can hear people on the other end saying...
What?
How do you say enough again? Ready?
Genugapisht.
They're saying genugapisht.
Yeah, genugapisht to all this. Hazara.
Yes, that's right. So
let's get into something totally Anglo.
Okay. Okay, here's something totally Anglo. You walked in, and your contribution to my pile of possible topics here today was to hand me something that said the August Learning Channel, one of our cable networks, has signed your favorite program, Honey Boo Boo, to another season.
Drek meaning like disgusting, whatever. No, it's very funny because Lynn had a little email from someone that she just watched Honey Boo Boo. I'm not really watching it, but I love the fact that it exists.
That wasn't just that was Tracy, our former produder.
Oh, that's right. Oh, my God. Pardonnez-moi.
So you got Tracy into this. Like she
it's like a...
pollution. God.
So now where are we going when we're in the 5th week before the election?
Oh, God, is it 5? It's still...
Or is it 6?
Time... It's so funny how when you're having fun, time flies, but when you want something to be over, it drags.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's very funny. I had dinner with a friend who's Australian and has just come to America 5 months ago to work here in Pittsburgh. And I was just saying, how do you see this as opposed to, the elections in Australia and whatever? And it was very funny to listen to him. And then I was talking about something about Obama speaking at the UN yesterday to the General Assembly. And I said I thought it was a very inspiring speech. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I said something like, as the leader of the free world. And he laughed. I said, what do you mean?
Because you didn't mean it in a jocular manner.
Well, no, I said, I'm not saying America's been perfect. And we've propped up, people like, what's his name? Gaddafi and others. What other nation, for good or worse, better or worse, rules the what?
Excuse me, has such a large footprint.
Thank you so much. With your brilliant journalist mind, yeah. No, but really, seriously, I said,
well, yeah, and so what did the Aussie say then?
Well, he said, oh, yeah, I guess.
All right. Okay.
But he said, it's very funny. They get far more scurrilous in terms of debates in that British mode. But he said it's not so omnipresent as it is here. Just like, for 2 years.
Oh, God, it's endless here, as we know. Okay, Ray says he's missing the show because his operation could not be completed again on the mobile site. I don't know what that means. His iPhone. Well,
that's a smart guy from...
We will take note, Ray.
Sorry, Ray.
Yeah, sorry. We will not have Ray's insights. Tim writes, the Braddock Carnegie Hall was only open to workers at first. Well, that's sort of a non sequitur. Are you saying that Carnegie Hall, that was the first one, the Braddock one? Why doesn't anyone care about the destruction of the Garden Theater?
Well, the thing is that
that's the porn theater on the historic North Side.
Well, I just knew about this because I went to a bunch of meetings. The whole idea was that Barbara Luterowski and Arthur Ziegler of the Pittsburgh Monuments and whatever.
Historic preservation.
Landmarks and preservation.
Yeah.
And the idea was to take the whole block, a square city block, or two square
like North Avenue and Federal. That's
right,
the corner.
And the Garden Theater being the center. But the idea was that almost everything would be gutted of all those buildings, and then the theater would remain as a sort of legitimate theater for music and performance and whatever. But they waited too long because there was all sorts of arguments, and the man, actually it was some very Orthodox Jewish guy from New York who owned the Garden Theater, and for 12 years...
He wouldn't sell it.
Well, because he was saying that the reason they were taking it down was it was a porn theater and he had the freedom of speech, and that went for about 8 years until finally the courts, after reviewing it 5 or 6 times, said, no, that's not valid. So then he had to sell. But by that point, the buildings surrounding it were literally holding it up. And when they started looking into it at that point, the structure was so awful. So that's the answer.
But wait, why did he have to sell? Was it an eminent domain thing? I mean, if somebody doesn't want to sell it, it was eminent domain. They just took it. Okay,
Tom Murphy was still mayor.
I do not remember that. Anyway, Tim writes he was told that it was a largely intact Art Nouveau theater that should have been preserved. But if what Sokolowski here is telling us,
it was not in great shape, because I remember going to a performance that Carla Booz.
Booze,
her, what's her theater company called?
Quantum Theater.
Quantum Theater did, I think it was Billy the Kid in there, and I remember you stuck to the floor.
Oh, God, please.
That's enough said.
Yeah, enough said indeed.
Is that a synecdoche? Maybe it's not, I don't know. Where a part stands for the whole, like sticking to the floor, you immediately sort of know what that means.
Is that what a synecdoche?
Well, synecdoche would be I'm trying to think of
that was the name of a movie I didn't bother to see. But that was the first time I'd even heard that word.
Yeah, a thing, like an element
Philip
of something.
Seymour Hoffman, I think. And did you see the movie?
No.
Synecdoche. I don't even know how to...
Syne.
No, it's not Schenectady.
No, but that was what I...
Yes, but
SYN.
So it's a figure of
ECDOCHE.
Speech.
Whereas a thing will stand for the whole thing. Like an element of something will sort of stand for the whole larger idea. Oh, what's a classic synecdoche?
I can't even say it.
Synecdoche. SYNECDOCHE.
You know, you'd have to have a death wish as a producer to allow a film to be named that. Don't you think? If a person can't even pronounce it, can't remember it, can't...
Well, like me, we were talking earlier, I can never get...
The movie was called Schenectady.
It is. It was not called Schenectady.
2008.
She's looking at the...
But it was called Synecdoche, New York.
Synecdoche.
New York.
All right, but...
Playing off of Schenectady.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
I was like, we're rehearsing for My Fair Lady.
All right.
The rain in Schenectady. Schenectady.
Okay, so I mentioned the other day, you didn't hear this because you weren't here, that San Francisco, the Board of Supervisors was taking up yesterday a proposal to change the, I don't know, is it a zoning code or the whatever, the building code it would be, that would redefine apartment as, or a living unit, could be as small as 220 square feet.
That's small.
That is, I think that's smaller than this room.
Well, let's see, this is what, like?
This is 12.
20? Well,
no.
12 by 12 by 10. Well,
it can't be. Well, actually, maybe it's about the size of this room.
Yeah.
That this could be an apartment. And actually, I lived in an apartment in New York City that I think was about like this. But
I hope bathroom down the hall.
It was the size, they say, of like if you took 5 ping pong tables and put them together, you have 220 square feet. So anyway, it turns out, this is the follow-up, the board tabled it, passed on it, because it's very, very controversial. And it's controversial because it is so expensive to live in San Francisco. And because there is a housing crisis there. This is actually a response to the housing crisis. Well, let's say you can have these little... They said this will not solve the housing crisis. This will exacerbate the housing crisis. Many people feel.
Yeah, because I presume a lot of young people would want to come to make their way and wouldn't have a lot of money and would put up with it because they're 22.
Exactly right. Yeah. And so... They're also saying they're making the city then unaffordable for families. So you're just going to have these, bunch of young people living in these little warrens.
But the other side of that is, though, I mean, people say, for example, in New York, and I know it's true from when I lived there, when you live in a place like that, even if it's nice and live and clean and all that and live in a nice part of the city, then what you tend to do is go out. So it's good for business and restaurateurs.
That's right. You don't sit in there. You do. You leave. You sleep in there. Right. And mostly, though, you're out. But the average rent for a studio apartment, which is, essentially one room. Right. Studio apartment in San Francisco is over $2,000 a month. Yeah. $2,000 a month for one room. They figured these little, what they're calling micro units, would rent for $1,200 to $1,500 a month. Wow.
Well, that's called, what do they have that?
Well, how can anybody, what kind of craziness
What do they call those in Japan? There's a name for that.
Yeah. And they say that the Japanese, obviously have these things.
Well, they actually have ones that are like, it's not capsule.
Just a little bed. You sort of go in.
Well, that you actually go in and it's like a coffin.
That's right.
It has a telephone.
Can you imagine?
Baker Eddie would have loved it. What do they call them? Pocket hotels?
Yes, I think that is
I think that is the word. I remember when I would go to Japan, went a lot for a while in the 80s, early 90s, and, oh, God, we'd stay in these hotels, and these weren't really the pocket hotels, but they were so teeny. And you just be in them. And
well, but, any highly populous city had, when you're in New York, all of a sudden things have to come down to scale. Exactly. I mean, in New York, in my little apartment in New York, the refrigerator was this big, the stove was this. I'd never personally had seen any, all these sort of miniature things, which are,
Well, I remember a friend in graduate school, her apartment, it really was like what they used to call cold water flats. Yeah. And her table, her kitchen table, was basically a, hinged top, and the bathtub was underneath it.
Sure. Yeah. That's what you have to do. Yeah. And they were saying in these micro units in San Francisco, they're already showing how you would have some, a bed that would come out of the wall. Then you would have a toilet that had you could be a chair when it wasn't being a toilet. You could have tables.
Well, I remember that going on one of those, the Orient Express that goes along the West Coast in the United States, and we took a Carnegie trip, and it was awful because the roomette the bed came down, the toilet came down. From
right.
the wall.
Right.
Ah!
Well, you're on a train. What do you want?
Well, I wanted a couchette. I didn't want a closet.
A couchette is a sleeper?
Yeah. That's what they call it in France.
Okay. Tom, we should take a break.
Oh, yes.
When we come back, we'll talk about the demise of Andy
Western
Williams.
society.
No.
Oh, Andy Williams.
Same thing. Wider than a mile.
I thought it was funny.
Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com or call Lynn at 412-316-3381. Lynn Cullen Live will return in a moment.
Pittsburgh City Paper is available now. Pick up one today for the Stanley Clark Trio, Streb, Matthew Morrison, and News of the Weird. Pittsburgh City Paper available at over 1,700 locations throughout Western Pennsylvania and on the web at pghcitypaper.com and on your smartphone at citypapermobile.com. Get Lynn Cullen Live on your smartphone. Go to citypapermobile.com now for Pittsburgh City Paper's brand new mobile app. Get the latest restaurant reviews, event listings, movie times, and of course, Lynn Cullen Live on your smartphone. citypapermobile.com.
There will be readings in over 600 cities in 115 countries. 100,000 Poets for Change will take place on Saturday, September 29th at 7 p.m. at Awesome Books located at 929 Liberty Avenue downtown. Peace and sustainability is a major concern worldwide and the guiding principle for this global event. Featured readers include Jimmy Savetic, Christiane D., and Don Wentworth. There will be an open mic after the readings, free to the public, open to all ages. For more information, call 412-606-1220.
Now, it's back to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com.
Moon River. Now, that was written by Pittsburgher Henry Mancini.
Oh, I forgot that.
Yes, it was. And sung famously by Andy Williams, who's now deceased.
Crooner, that's an old word.
Crooner. And that's, I guess, what he was.
I wonder where that comes. Is that an American word or?
Well, to croon. To croon.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, that sounds like it has a foreign.
Well, I don't know.
Jess, can you look up crooner where that's from? Thank you.
So anyway, he was an art collector. You might.
Oh, I didn't know that.
No, and Tom,
what sort of things?
Tom would be interested in that because, as you know, Tom was the
has a Picasso in every pocket.
The mover and shaker at the Warhol Museum on the historic North Side. He collected art, it says, works by, here you go, Picasso, Jackson Pollock, Willem de Kooning.
Oh, my goodness.
Henry Moore. And
I thought you were going to say traditional landscapes. Oh, how interesting.
No,
wow.
so so there was a side of him you didn't know. He was in 1987 named to Arts and Antiques magazine list of top 100 American collectors.
Really? Well, that's very interesting.
There's something. See, I knew you would like that. Did you find anything of the derivation of crooner?
Originally, it was an ironic term denoting an emphatically sentimental, often emotional singing style.
All right, already.
Possible by the use of microphones.
Ironic. Oh, that was way too much of a thing. Wait, I need you to say that into a mic. Really, please, because it is so odd. So that's very American, I bet. Come on, say it.
So croon being from
okay, I don't know. So it turns out it was an ironic term. Go ahead.
Originally, it was...
Hey.
Oh, my gosh.
Wait, hold on. You got it?
You can do it.
Originally, it was an ironic term denoting an emphatically sentimental, often emotional singing style made possible by the use of microphones.
There, and you had to have a microphone to say it.
That's right, exactly.
Okay, so crooning was something that you did into a microphone in a emotional...
Doobity-doobie, when they get very close to the microphone.
Yeah. Speaking of getting close to the microphone, when I first got into radio, I shared a studio with Myron Cope.
Oh, yes, right.
The famous
inventor of the terrible
towel and a great Pittsburgh character. And apparently, he was heard on his show the first week I had been on to rant, "What's going on here? That girlie they let in here." He always called women girlies. "That girlie they had in here got lipstick all over this microphone." And I thought, I did? How would I have lipstick on the microphone? And then I went in and I saw, and there was like a sort of like reddish hue on the mic. And I realized that I get so close that I must have on occasion brushed it or something. Well, it so grossed him out. He couldn't take it, but he got used to it. That girlie turned my microphone. I can't wait.
And he did. I mean, he was only alive a few years when I came here, but he did have that nasty sounding voice.
Oh, I love that voice. It was such a riot. So anyway, here two other little things about Andy Williams before we leave him
in peace.
In peace. He was a good friend of Robert Kennedy and Ethel. And when,
he always.
And
was
when Robert was assassinated, he sang at his funeral the Battle Hymn of the Republic.
Oh, I remember that.
Wow. Do you?
Yes.
Okay. However, by the time he died, he had become a rabid Republican.
Oh, don't they always?
And get this. He was heard just 3 years ago to utter these words: "Obama is following Marxist theory. He's taken over the banks and the car industry. He wants the country to fail." God! So that is Andy Williams. The other thing that I always remembered him for, and I was surprised because the Washington Post obit did not mention it. However, the New York Times did. Do you recall the murder trial that he was very much involved in?
No.
No?
No.
No? The murder trial was in 1975.
Okay.
And his ex-wife was charged in the killing of her then lover, who was a professional skier. And it was said that she literally shot him as he was, I guess, shushing down. This was in Aspen.
But wasn't she
French?
I
think she was French-Canadian. She was a Corrine.
Like Gigi or some name like that?
Her name was...
I do remember this now.
Her name was...
how funny these things come flooding
Longet.
Back.
Her name is Claudine Longet.
Claudine
Longet.
And she had one of these native voices, I remember.
Yeah, well, so she... I think she blew him away while he was in the act of doing what he did, which is skiing.
Shushing.
Yeah, shushing. And what I remember about it is that she was the mother of Andy Williams' 3 children, and he came to her defense after she'd been charged with the murder of Spider. And his
name was Spider?
Well, that's what they called him, Spider Savage.
Oh, dear.
Savage.
Okay.
And he sat with her during the trial. He accompanied her during the trial. He was absolutely there for her. And get this. She, by the way, contended that the shooting was accidental. Well, I was accidentally holding this gun.
With a
with a silencer.
Yeah, she shot him with a silencer while he was shushing, while Spider was shushing.
I actually don't remember exactly how she did. But anyway, listen to this. So she was found guilty, but not a first degree or even second degree. She was found guilty of criminally negligent homicide, which, believe it or not, is a misdemeanor.
Oh, my God.
And she spent a whole 30 days in jail.
Sounds like Lindsay Lohan or something.
Well, I don't think she's killed anybody yet.
Well, that's true, too.
Okay, now one more little thing about Andy Williams, which I think is a real doozy.
You're just fond of stuff.
Well, isn't this fun
stuff?
stuff?
What you said when you said Longet, and I said Claudine Longet.
Claudine Longet.
I think she actually was a sort of quasi-singer.
A little bit of a singer.
She and he did some Christmas songs or something.
Right. Okay, so when Andy Williams first got to Hollywood, he was a young kid, but he was a good singer, and he was actually asked, a 1944 film, wonderful film, To Have and Have Not, Lauren Bacall, Humphrey Bogart.
Right.
This might have been the film they met.
Is that where she had the line, if you want me, put your lips together and blow?
I think just put your lips together and blow. So in that film, she sings a song.
Oh.
And they didn't think Lauren, although she was certainly a sultry, gorgeous hunk,
was quite a singer.
Quite a singer. So guess who dubbed?
Andy Williams dubbed.
Yes! Andy Williams was brought in to dub Lauren Bacall's song.
That's very weird.
Okay, but
I mean,
here's
she
what it
did
says.
have a very dusky voice, but he had a sort of high tenor voice. I would see the two as being mutually contradictory.
Okay, here's what it says. According to several sources, including Ms. Bacall, the studio did, however, end up using her voice after all, although perhaps a few of the high notes were the boys.
The boys, yes.
The little boyish.
Now, is she still alive?
She's very much alive.
Oh, she is. But I think now reduced to a wheelchair or something. I don't
know.
That.
She's very much alive.
Because I remember she lives in that fabulous Dakota apartment house.
Yes.
On, what's it, 72nd and Central Park West.
Central Park West, where John and Yoko lived, and John was blown away outside of it. That's where he was killed.
And that's very near to it in Central Park is where they have the,
Strawberry Fields.
Strawberry Fields, right.
Allison writes, it's so sad, isn't it sad, that so many people can get upset about a call in a football game that they in fact take action and change is affected, but they won't get that motivated to contact their congressman or senator to do the same thing. My mother told me yesterday that my brother was so freaked. You don't know about any of this.
I know.
The Green Bay Packers were. It was two totally wrong calls.
Oh, I see.
And if the first call had been called, the second call wouldn't even have been necessary. It's just like, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, they did. These idiots cost my Green Bay Packers and my brother was
this ill decision stands.
People went nuts, and it wasn't just Packer fans because anybody else said they could do it to us next. First, they came for the Packers, and I said nothing. So my mother says that my brother actually wrote to the NFL. And I will never again watch one of your polluted broadcasts, nor will I buy any of your merchandise. And so, Allison, this is exactly what you're saying. I don't believe my brother has ever gotten so exercised to write his congressman or his senator. Anyway, Allison also writes, what I worry about in the upcoming debates that Obama respected McCain, but he dislikes Romney. Oh, I agree with you. So I'm hoping his facial expressions don't take away from the debate.
I mean, she says
as many people.
I don't remember that.
Well, here, no. So Al Gore, she mentions like what happened with Gore when Gore and Bush were doing their debates. Gore was seen in cutaway shots when Bush was talking as looking like. What a fucking idiot. You know, I mean, just sort of a look that you could smirk or roll in his eyes or whatever. And people didn't like it. Barack Obama, this is true, even when he's just being, he has a tendency, I don't know if you've noticed this, and I think...
To be above it all, sort of?
Not just above it, it's his body language. He holds himself.
He has a very patrician look.
That's because he holds himself with his chin up.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, you're right.
His chin is up, his head is back, and this is the classic thing of looking down your nose.
Right.
And it is the way he stands.
Right.
And so when he's just standing, he holds his head back like that, and
Very imperious.
It is imperious. And people read that, whether they're consciously reading it or not, as, I think I'm better than you. Yeah. And, a lot
what's
of
interesting,
people,
Allison says, also there are a lot of people who think that he's being uppity, which is the word that is used for black people.
Who get out of line.
Yeah, right.
Right. So I do think, I've always thought this, and I don't know if I've ever said it, that because of the way he tends to hold his head, that only feeds into the people who have maybe, I won't call them racist, but they're a little queasy about seeing a black man in this guise because they just doesn't fit with what they thought the president should look like.
He should have a mule and a hoe.
Whatever. Well, I don't even think that. Will you stop?
Well, that's what you're saying.
No, I wasn't saying that. I was...
No, I know what you're saying. No, I know what you're saying.
But no, I agree. And I do worry. And I think his team is smart enough. He can't help the way he holds his head. He's going to hold his head that way.
It's inbred. But
he does it a lot. And I don't like it. I've always reacted to it as like, hey. But he can't help it. That's how he holds himself. Right. And it does probably say how he feels about himself. This is a guy who is very sure of himself.
Right. Well, he's president.
And that is, but even before he was. And this is so, how could he dare think he could be president of the United States? This mutt with a name like Barack Obama. He thought he could be president of the United States. The effrontery? Mm-hmm. The gall, the chutzpah.
But no, I see what you're saying. Yeah, that's right.
So, I mean, if you were on stage and when you were doing your little thing as you're the soloniste, I think your head was like that.
No, baby.
That's what you do.
I got that shtick from the president. No, but that is interesting. No, that's a very interesting point because Americans, well, we do and we don't. Sometimes we like that auteur, that sort of grandness, but other times, like, who the hell do you think we are? I mean, race notwithstanding, we're just plain old people.
No, I know, regulars, and so we don't like imperiousness, and we sure don't like it. I mean, a lot of people don't like it in a black.
No, well, right. Well, but you think of even like the Kennedys, who were patrician, if you could be patrician in this country, with all the money and prestige. But JFK was just man of the people.
Yeah,
cheesing away
like
with
a regular
smiles.
Guy. Right.
Well, he was stooping everyone, but.
Just like a regular guy.
Yeah, well.
Ansel writes, oops, sorry, Ansel, you have been interrupted by a caller. Hello, caller.
Hi.
Hi.
Real quick, Lynn, I don't think you have to worry about that. I think if I was a Romney camp, I'd be worried about, Romney comes across to me as an angry man. He's like a sore loser that he's losing, and he's coming, that's just my opinion. But,
really?
Thank you.
Okay. Well, in the eye of the beholder, I don't see him as angry, but I see him increasingly as flummoxed.
Well, and not knowing what to do now.
Well, here, for those of you who didn't see, on Morning Joe, Joe Scarborough was shown a video of Romney in Ohio, and his reaction to it was to literally scream out, "Oh, sweet Jesus!" and put his head in his hands.
Well, this
and
is
what he was reacting to,
yeah.
Romney is appearing before a crowd in Ohio, and the crowd, he made, he said something, and my running mate, Paul Ryan. And the crowd starts going, Ryan, 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 Ryan. And Romney says, wait a second. He gets freaked. They're calling for Ryan. And what am I? Chopped liver? So he says, hey, I'm running too. And he actually started to try to get them to say, Romney, Ryan, Romney, Ryan, Romney, Ryan. And they didn't do it.
No.
And I mean, Scarborough's watching this and he says, oh, sweet Jesus.
Well, I thought it's interesting on that. What was some point where recently he was being asked a question, and in it, Mr. Ryan had said that he was for maybe something in healthcare, I can't remember, and Governor Romney said, "Well, I know what Paul Ryan thinks, but I don't think so, and I'm the one who's running for president."
Yeah, he's getting a little testy, and because. Anyway, in Scarborough, who is a Republican, as you know, he was a conservative Republican congressman from Florida, he went on to say, I think he's a good man. He is. I mean, he's a great father. He's a great husband. He's a great businessman. If I had a business, I'd have him run it. He just is one of the worst politicians I've ever seen. Absolutely the worst.
Well, you think about it. Think about, and everyone talking about going back to Reagan. And this was this piece I had sent Lynn, something that there's a piece in Newsweek this last week by the conservative pundit
Andrew Sullivan.
It was this openly gay man, but he's a brilliant writer, in which he calls the title of the article is something like, Is Obama the new Reagan? But the one thing, I didn't particularly like Mr. Reagan's politics, but boy, goddammit, could he look presidential. I mean, whether it was the actor within him.
Whatever, yeah.
Mr. Gorbachev, take down that wall. Or was it Gorbachev? Or was it? Yeah, I think it was Gorbachev. Mm-hmm. But, things like that. I mean, he looked presidential. And there's a time at which you don't want someone who's going to lead a cheer because he's left out of it. I mean, that really is just tacky.
It's pathetic.
Pathetic, yeah.
Ansel writes, 3 comments on voting in Pennsylvania. 1, on MSNBC this morning, Chuck Todd reported that Pennsylvania's absentee voting procedure is the most difficult, I bet it is, of all the states, further suggesting that absentee voters could be disenfranchised too. I have to tell you, my son has applied for an absentee ballot because he's away at school in another state. Mm-hmm. And I'm worried that they won't give it to him because the way it reads, if they want to be sticklers, is you have to be ill or away on business. I think if they say, hey, if you're a student there, that's where you're living, so you should be voting there, not here. And I told him, I said, you say that your residence is in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and you are temporarily in this location because I think they I don't know. And
of course that's true.
He had made a calculated decision to register here rather than there because his vote could count more. The state he's in is not a swing.
It's very funny. That makes me think of the Bible. And it came to pass at the time of and everyone had to go back to their hometowns to vote.
That's right.
Good enough for Mary and Joseph.
Hey, good enough for you. That's right. So Ansel writes, secondarily, over the weekend I was able to see one of these new PA voter ID cards. If you didn't look closely, you would think it was a driver's license. The 2 cards look nearly identical and could easily be confused. I wonder if that will be an issue going forward. And 3, you only have until October 9th to register to vote.
Now, do you mean, Ansel, about people using the ID cards to drive with, who either won't understand or will you do it to just to?
I don't know.
But the cops will certainly know.
The state has just been stumbling all over itself trying to make this, okay, well, if that's, then we'll do this, and then we'll make them available here, and then, okay, you don't need a notarized birth certificate. Okay, you don't. Now they're making it so easy that you can.
So what's
there's
the
legitimate
point?
Security concerns about it. So I can go in because these state IDs could be used to board an airplane. So I mean, this looks like, hey, terrorists, you want to come here? It is. Look, it is an effort clearly to disenfranchise Pennsylvania, and I saw a list today of early voting in states and who can vote early, what percentage of people in the states can vote early. I did a quick look at it, but I think Pennsylvania was the most restricted state, so that less than 3% of our voters can vote before the actual day of the election. There were many states where 100% can vote, where 50% can vote. They are voting right now for the presidency in Iowa and in other states. And Pennsylvania has just had a constant record of making it as hard as possible to exercise your franchise.
You always know these things, and I don't. Is early voting the same thing as absentee?
No, it's not.
Now, why did you vote early?
Well, just because you want to avoid the crowds on Election Day, or maybe you are going to be leaving town, or whatever fits into your schedule better. I know Wisconsin allows early voting. I'm not sure at what point before the election it starts. My mother has always gone. So go on a regular day where there's nobody.
Oh, I see. Whereas absentee ballot, you can mail it in. Whereas early voting, you
show up and vote.
Okay. Oh, okay.
And in Pennsylvania, where you can't find another state that makes it more difficult. Yeah. All righty, guys. I think time for a BREAK break.
More is on the way with Lynn Cullen Live.
The Pittsburgher Burger Competition and Music Festival benefiting the American Liver Foundation comes to the Rivers Casino on Saturday, September 29th from 1 to 7. See Pittsburgh's best restaurants compete for the title of Best Burger in the Burg. Sample and vote for your favorite burger while you listen to great Pittsburgh bands and enjoy ice-cold Amstel Light. For more information and to buy tickets, go to midnightguru.com. The Pittsburgher Burger Competition on Saturday, September 29th at the Rivers Casino. Get ready to get your burger on. Sponsored by Amstel Light and produced by Diane Rua Media. Gambling problem? Call 800-848-1880.
All right. Tom just told me he got his diploma. You are now a bona fide tutor at the Greater Pittsburgh Literacy Council. And when did they give you your first victim?
Victim, right, exactly. Well, I was told that the woman who's my coordinatrix was away in Iraq. And she'll be back, I think, the 1st of October. And then she'll sort through, based upon what I suggested, the candidates who are here in downtown or work downtown.
What the heck is she doing in Iraq?
Visiting family, I guess.
What?
What do you mean, what?
People visit Iraq?
I guess if you have family, you do.
Oy vey. Okay. Okay.
Anyway, so then she'll be contacted.
Okay, so then you'll be... That's great. So look how fast that went. Tom was sitting here one day, and I started yapping about the Greater Pittsburgh Literacy Council needing tutors to do one-on-one tutoring with people who want to learn how to read. And he scribbled down the phone number. I watched him. And then he went and did it.
Well, it's also, if people are interested, it's learning to read. That's one-on-one. English as a second language is another thing. And then also people, I guess probably the preponderant reason for all of the above is people who want to get their GEDs. And therefore there's even two, because one thing that was very interesting, what we learned was, if we got a GED student and you could
apply for one.
Then you would have to sort of tutor a little bit in math, a little bit in social science, in addition to literary stuff. But also, one of the interesting things was the teacher said that really, in a sense, you're also acting like a life coach. If you go for a job, you don't wear flip-flops. And if you go for a job, you maybe wear a tie. You don't smoke and people might not know these. So it really is like a life coach. So that was very interesting.
Well, it's a wonderful thing. And you can follow in Tom's footsteps, do what he's about to do. And it certainly can be a life-changing experience for your pupil. However, many of the tutors say it's a life-changing experience for them.
Yes, exactly.
So, the phone number that Tom scribbled down, why don't you do it too, 412-393-7600, or check out the whole Megillah on the internet at GPLC, Greater Pittsburgh Literacy Council.org.
Go to bergbargains.com for great deals on tickets to the Science Center, City Theater, History Museum, Carnegie Museums, and some of the best restaurants in Pittsburgh. This week, get 50% off admission for two to the Pittsburgher at Rivers Casino. bergbargains.com. Local deals, local merchants. bergbargains.com.
There will be readings in over 600 cities in 115 countries. 100,000 Poets for Change will take place on Saturday, September 29th at 7 p.m. at Awesome Books located at 929 Liberty Avenue downtown. Peace and sustainability is a major concern worldwide and the guiding principle for this global event. Featured readers include Jimmy Hoffa, Christiane D., and Don Wentworth. There will be an open mic after the readings, free to the public, open to all ages. For more information, call 412-606-1220.
You're listening to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Once again, here's Lynn Cullen.
And here I am back with Tom Sokolowski. Oh, they're going to dig up another driveway in Michigan. They think maybe Jimmy Hoffa is under it. Somebody said that they saw a body being buried right under that driveway, like whenever it was Hoffa was killed. That's 35 years ago.
Okay, yeah.
Anyway, so what happened is the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality used radar and found an anomaly at the site of the driveway.
Concrete.
Something's there that shouldn't maybe be there. And so I guess on Friday they're going to dig it up and take soil samples, and they'll be sent to forensic anthropologists. I guess they're not digging the whole thing up to find bones. They're just getting some samples to see if there's human remains in there.
I thought that happened during when Bobby Kennedy was...
1975.
Well, then that can't be
disappeared.
Right. Well, no, then it wasn't. Because I thought it was... Bobby Kennedy hated him, and he hated Bobby Kennedy.
Yeah. But no, this is...
I mean, half your audience doesn't know who...
Kennedy was dead in 1968.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And Hoffa dead in 1975. Oh, come on, my audience is smart. They know that Jimmy Hoffa was the president of the Teamsters Union.
Teamsters Union, and a real sort of thug. A short, chunky thug. But who wielded lots of power.
He was classic.
Well, he grew up driving a truck. And then,
So you mentioned this, big, huge article in the New York Times about McClatchy, the...
Oh, right.
former owner of the Pittsburgh Pirates, coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And you said what I said. Your reaction to it was?
That it was commonly known within certain aspects of the community.
Okay, well, okay. In the gay community, it was known.
Yeah.
But the gay community isn't living in some,
No, right, that's true. And people...
So gay people talk.
Right.
And and I knew. Mm-hmm. Who didn't? I thought everybody knew that Kevin McClatchy was gay.
I guess if you didn't want to know.
Well, he says in the article that he really did not have much of a social life because he was closeted. And he had no real relationships that worked. It was very sad.
Until recently,
Yeah, sad.
Because he was a nice-looking man, and he was pleasant enough. Slightly dull from when I met him a few times. We had our little contretemps over the pirate ship, but
that's right. He wanted to build this like Disneyland pirate ship.
Well, my line was the good ship Lollipop from Hell.
Right, that would be parked outside PNC Park
in the water.
In the water, and you went nuts as the arbiter of all good taste in Pittsburgh.
I stopped it,
and you prevailed.
Well, the thing I just remember, the reason was, I think I may have said this once before. We had just at the Carnegie taken a trip to Europe with some trustees, as cultural institutions do, to help, stroke donors, what have you. And we were in England, but we decided this was just when the Bilbao Guggenheim had opened. And at that point, you could go we could go for the day from London to Bilbao. So we did. And, everyone said, oh, look, Bilbao was a city very much like Pittsburgh because it was based on tungsten, or something that's used in steel making. And then they had the greatest amount of that.
Ore.
Yeah,
right.
Bismuth or I can't remember, whatever it was. And they had gone downhill, and couldn't Pittsburgh do this? And this was when we were thinking of the Carnegie Science Center right on the water, similarly to the Guggenheim.
The
Guggenheim in Bilbao.
Okay, Bilbao.
So we came, so the next day we arrived, and this thing comes out in the paper. So... somebody called me, and I said, ah.
Yeah, you did.
So anyway, because it was horrible. I said, hey, we were going to see what a beautiful museum could take this sort of backwater little city in Spain and turn it into an international capital. And this is going to be the good ship Lollipop from Hell. And what I remembered was they, of course, the first night, all these sports channels were like, who's that guy, that gooky guy from the war. So they did a poll on ESPN or one of the stations, and 99% of the people agreed with me. I said, you don't put a piece of plastic in the waterfront and in front of a very nice park. I mean, it's like
I'm actually surprised that
was.
People didn't think that would be a fun thing.
And I remember, the thing that was really annoying to me was I was asked, along with Carol Brown, the quite grand lady
who was
head
of the Cultural Trust at the time,
to be on a committee when they were just putting up PNC Park. And there was Mary Navarro from at that point, the Heinz Endowments. And we were to look they gave us a budget. And that was all, malarkey. And I really let them... Yeah, no, there was never any art put up other than those horrible statues. I mean, we were looking at real art, And I remember Kevin McClatchy once having a meeting with him, and he was sort of like, "Arr!" And I said, Kevin, you lied to me. Well, I won't do it again. And I said, well, you better not. But that was my...
Okay, so interesting. I am blanking right now. It's driving me crazy. The whole day I'm telling you a story, I was digging around in my recesses of my brain to remember the name of Kevin McClatchy's maternal grandfather, because I was blown away when I learned that was who his grandfather was. Very, very influential, famous diplomat who was...
From California?
Yeah, but he's largely responsible. I mean, you know the name. I don't know why I can't think of the name. He was responsible. No, he's like State Department. He was responsible for...
John Foster Dulles.
No, for creating the entire idea of containment post-World War II, of how to deal with the Russians. He was, I think he was our ambassador to Russia, to the Soviet Union. And he wrote a famous memo that became the bedrock of the policy that did, in fact, end up being American foreign policy during the Cold War era.
His grandfather?
Yeah.
But maternal. Not paternal.
Maternal. So his name's not McClatchy. That's why I'm having trouble. But and he was a handsome, tall man who lived to be well into his 100. No, not Abraham. He lived to be at least, I think, 100 years old. And I once met McClatchy's mother. I don't know why. I was at some event. And I said to her, I am so blown away that your father was... Help me here.
I once took her and two of his sisters on a tour of the museum when I first came to Pittsburgh. She was quite remarkable. She went, I think his father had died, and she went off for like 2 years to teach English in Russia or someplace, in Nepal or something like that. She was
George Kennan.
Yes, thank you. George Kennan. Kennan. George Kennan. He is a huge figure in America. Well, he's not one of those names necessarily, but if you ever took a history class, it was a serious class about the Cold War era or World War II, George Kennan is a huge figure, and that's McClatchy's grandfather.
Interesting.
Yeah, comes from a pretty impressive line.
Oh, one last thing, just it connects up with your spot. I remember going to, and it may have been an event, again, this was quite a few years ago, but for the Greater Pittsburgh Literacy Council, and Kevin was the keynote speaker because he had a difficult time because he is dyslexic. And he talked about that and had to go to a special school. But he said, even today, he said, maybe I was interested in baseball because, the idea of numbers was a little bit easier to read, like, run the average and all that, rather than reading, pages and pages. And which is interesting and sort of poignant because for someone whose family money was based on newspapers, which is all
he
about
had trouble reading. That's right.
But it was he had a very moving speech, I have to say.
Okay, George Kennan, look him up. It's impressive. If he were my grandfather, I'd be bragging about him left and right
and
constantly, and I don't think McClatchy ever mentioned him.
If you ever get on Jeopardy, it might be the last answer.
That might be it. And I don't know why I couldn't. Okay, I think we're done.
Yeah, boy, are we.
I love your purple shirt.
Oh, thank you, dear. Well, I love your aubergine chamois. No, well, that's not chamois. Well, whatever it is. Brocade.
Certainly like tapestry.
Yeah, sort of like a brocade, yes.
Yes, brocade. Oh, that's what you said. And you see my beast climbing on my breast.
Oh, I thought that was your boyfriend. On that.
All right.
It's not that kind of show.
We're out of here.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Tomorrow.
What is that, a wasp?
What?
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.